Broom was a surprisingly effective prop. One minute I was just helping my buddy Mark clear a few tables after the lunch rush at his restaurant, just lending a hand, not clocked in or anything. The next, a woman built like a brick house, hair sculpted into a menacing helmet, was bearing down on me like an angry tank. She stopped inches from me, arms crossed, a scowl etched deep into her face. "Excuse me," she snapped, her voice like grinding gravel. "Are you just going to stand there sweeping dust? Or are you actually going to do your job and help a paying customer?" I blinked. I was, in fact, sweeping dust. But it wasn't my job. Still, a mischievous thought sparked. Mark was swamped, and this woman clearly hadn't had her afternoon entitlement fix. "Oh, my apologies, ma'am," I said, leaning casually on the broom handle, a slight smirk playing on my lips. "What can I do for you?" Her eyes narrowed, taking in my casual hoodie and jeans, certainly not a uniform. "Well, first," she huffed, gesturing vaguely at the half-empty dining room, "this establishment is a pigsty. And second, I've been waiting ages for someone to bring me the dessert menu. You certainly don't look like management, but honestly, at this point, anyone would be an improvement." My smirk widened internally. "You know what, ma'am? You're absolutely right. This place is a pigsty, and the service? Abysmal." I lowered my voice conspiratorially. "And you know what else? I'm actually the manager on duty." I bit back a laugh, waiting for the inevitable. Her jaw dropped, then snapped shut. "You? The manager?" she scoffed, a truly magnificent sound. "Don't be ridiculous. You look like you just graduated high school. There's no way you're old enough to manage anything more complicated than a lemonade stand." "Actually," I said, pushing a bit further, "I'm in my mid-20s, been here 5 years, working my way up." The lies rolled off my tongue with surprising ease. I was just having too much fun. She threw her hands up in exasperation. "Mid-20s? 5 years? Huh, you expect me to believe that? What are you even doing working in a place like this? You should be in school, getting an education. You're just going to end up stupid and living on the street if you keep wasting your potential here." Her voice was rising now, attracting a few curious glances from other diners. Just then, my actual buddy, Mark, the real manager, walked up, wiping his hands on a towel, a knowing glint in his eye as he took in my broom, Karen's flushed face, and my barely contained grin. He must have heard the tail end of her rant. "Excuse me, ma'am," he interjected smoothly, stepping between us. "Is there a problem here?" Karen spun on him, her voice escalating to a near shriek. "Yes, there's a problem. This child here claims he's your manager, says he's been here 5 years and he's in his mid-20s. It's an insult to my intelligence." Mark put on his most serious manager face, though I could see the tremor in his shoulders. "Ma'am, with all due respect, my employee has been with us for 5 years, and he is indeed in his mid-20s. He met my eyes, and I could barely hold back a snort. He was playing along beautifully. Karen's face purpled. "Oh, for heaven's sake, you're just covering for him. You're both liars. You think I'm some kind of fool?" That was my cue. I straightened up, dropping the broom with a clatter. The sound cut through the tense silence. I reached into my back pocket, pulled out my wallet, and slowly extracted my driver's license. I held it out to her, my expression utterly bland. "You know what, ma'am?" I said, my voice quiet, cutting through her bluster. "You're absolutely right. I do look young, and I'm in my mid-20s. But everything else I told you? Complete and utter fabrication." I let the words hang in the air, watching her face cycle through confusion, dawning horror, and then pure, unadulterated rage. "See this ID?" I pointed to the photo. "That's me." And right there, I pointed to the address. "That's my home. I don't work here. I was just helping my friend Mark out with a little cleanup. I'm a customer, just like you." Karen stared at the license, then at me, then at Mark, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. The color drained from her face faster than beer from a tap. She sputtered, a strangled sound escaping her throat. But you said..." Mark, no longer able to contain himself, burst into a loud, booming laugh. He slapped me on the back, nearly sending me sprawling. "Oh, Jace, you magnificent bastard. I can't believe you actually went through with it." Karen's face, which had gone white, now turned an alarming shade of crimson. She snatched her purse, muttered something incoherent about disrespectful hooligans, and practically ran out the door, leaving a trail of furious indignation in her wake. Mark and I were practically in tears, leaning against each other, laughing until our sides hurt. He eventually wiped his eyes. I thought you were just going to tell her you didn't work here when she first asked. You really escalated that man? Well, I said, picking up the broom and giving a final theatrical sweep. Who doesn't love a good prank on an entitled Karen? Especially when she's so utterly convinced she knows everything. The satisfaction was so sweet, it almost made me want to actually apply for a job here. Almost? Anyway, that's my latest tale, folks. Sometimes the best way to deal with a Karen isn't to be polite, it's to give them a little taste of their own medicine. And believe me, the look on her face when she realized she'd been played, priceless.
Liking the vibe so far? Hit that subscribe button and stick around, the next story's even better.
The first thing I saw was a flash of something gray, Grams's uniform moving like a blur. Then I heard the sickening thud, a sharp intake of breath from the bulky guy she just punched square in the gut, and the collective gasp of a dozen shoppers. My heart hammered against my ribs, echoing the chaos that had erupted moments earlier. I remember thinking, what in the actual hell just happened? See, I'm Austin, and usually my stories are just funny mishaps, but this one's about a supermarket, a furious woman, an even angrier dude, and my personal geriatric guardian angel. It all started innocently enough. I was just trying to grab a quick breakfast before work, a yogurt, maybe a croissant, the usual before-dawn zombie routine. I was cruising through the empty-ish aisles, half asleep when I spotted Grams. She wasn't really my Gram, of course, just what everyone called the feisty older cleaner who always had a smile or a sharp word for the rude ones. She was meticulously mopping up some spill in aisle 4, moving a bit slower than usual, and looking a little tired. "Morning, Grams," I chirped, not really expecting much back. She grunted, clutching her lower back. "Morning, Austin. This damn job's gonna be the death of me." I saw a heavy bucket of water she needed to move and, without thinking, just grabbed it. "Let me get that for you? Don't want you throwing your back out." She looked at me, her eyes, usually squinting from a lifetime of hard work, widened slightly. "Well, aren't you a gem, son? Thank you, really." We had a quick, friendly chat about her grandkids and my ridiculous morning commute, and then we parted ways. She went back to her mopping, a little brighter, and I continued my quest for a decent Danish. I felt pretty good about myself, a little boost of human kindness to start the day. That good feeling lasted all of 5 minutes. I was contemplating the merits of strawberry versus blueberry muffins when I heard it, a shrill, entitled shriek that sliced through the mundane supermarket hum. "Hey, you, get me a list!" I turned, confused to see a woman standing there, arms akimbo, looking like she'd just rolled out of a designer catalog. Hair perfect, nails perfect, glare perfectly honed for maximum snobbery, and she was glaring directly at me. "Me?" I asked, gesturing to myself, then to my very clearly non-uniform shirt. "Yes, you," she snapped, stomping a perfectly manicured foot. "I asked for a list of your organic produce, and you're just standing there. Are you deaf?" "Ma'am, I don't work here," I explained, trying to keep my voice even. "I'm just a customer." She let out a scoff so loud, it could probably have shattered glass. "Oh, please, don't lie to me. I saw you just helping that old cleaner. You think I'm stupid?" My annoyance started to simmer. "I was just being polite. I really don't work for the store." Before I could finish, a hulking figure, built like a brick outhouse, materialized beside her. He was easily a foot taller and twice as wide as me, with a face that looked perpetually annoyed. He had a tight grip on her arm, like he was her minder. "What's the problem, babe?" He rumbled, his voice low and menacing, aimed directly at me. "He's refusing to get me a list," she whined, pointing a finger dangerously close to my nose. The bulky guy took a step forward, invading my personal space. His shadow loomed over me. "You heard the lady. Get her the damn list, now." "Look, man," I told her, "I don't work here." I tried, my voice losing some of its earlier calm. Fear, cold and unwelcome, was starting to prickle at my skin. This guy looked serious. He was staring me down, eyes narrowed, jaw clenched. I felt my escape routes narrowing. Just as I was mentally calculating my chances of outrunning a mountain of muscle, a familiar, no-nonsense voice cut through the tension. "All right, that's quite enough." It was Grams. She'd appeared out of nowhere, mop still in hand, looking like a tiny gray-haired battle axe. She stood between me and the bulky guy, her chin jutted out. "Leave the boy alone," she commanded, her voice surprisingly strong for someone so small. "He's a customer, just like you lot." The bulky guy laughed, a harsh, dismissive sound. "Mind your own business, Grandma, or you'll be the one needing a list of dental procedures." My blood ran cold, but Grams didn't even flinch. She just narrowed her eyes. "I am minding my business. My business is keeping this store orderly, and you two are being anything but." He took another threatening step towards her, towering over her. "You think you can talk to me like that?" "I think you need to leave him be," Graham said. Then, without warning, she dropped her mop with a clatter and reached out, grabbing the man's beefy arm with surprising strength. She didn't just pull, she twisted, leveraging her weight and momentum to actually start moving him. "You're coming with me, Sonny." The guy stumbled, clearly caught off guard. "Hey, let go of me, you old hag." But Grams was relentless. She was practically marching him, a tiny, determined shepherd herding a very angry bull, towards the front of the store. He was swearing and struggling, trying to shake her off, but she held on like a vice. I just stood there, jaw slack, watching this bizarre spectacle unfold. The entitled woman was sputtering behind them, yelling about disrespect. We finally reached the customer service desk, Graham still wrestling with the guy. He finally managed to pull free, his face a furious red. "That's it, you old bat, you're gonna pay for that," he roared, lunging back towards her, his fist balled. That's when it happened. Grams didn't hesitate. As he charged, she sidestepped with surprising agility, planting her feet, and then with a speed that belied her years, she delivered a sharp, focused punch right into his stomach. It wasn't a wild swing, it was a compact, powerful shot that obviously hit a nerve. The bulky guy buckled, a guttural sound torn from his throat, his charge faltering as he clutched his midsection. He dropped to his knees, wheezing. The whole store went silent. The entitled woman shrieked something unintelligible. The customer service manager, who'd been watching in stunned silence, finally snapped out of it and grabbed the phone. Long story short, the police were called. I gave my statement, still shaking, confirming everything Grams had done was in self-defense and defense of me. The bulky guy tried to press charges, but his girlfriend's initial aggressive demands and his own subsequent assault on Grams didn't do him any favors. Grams, bless her heart, was charged with assault. It was technically true, even if it was completely justified. She went to court, and I even showed up as a witness. The judge, clearly seeing the absurdity of it all, gave her a relatively light sentence, a fine and 250 hours of community service. Grams just grumbled about having to do more work. Why did she do it? Why did this small, tired cleaner risk so much for a stranger? I think she just saw someone being bullied, someone being taken advantage of, and she couldn't stand it. She saw I was in a tough spot, and she didn't think twice about stepping in. That brief moment of kindness I showed her with the bucket, I guess she just paid it back tenfold. She was my hero that day. My absolute #1 hero. It still breaks my heart to say it, but Grams isn't with us anymore. She passed away last year, peacefully, in her sleep. I went to her funeral, and when they asked if anyone had a story to share, I stood up. I told them about the supermarket, about the entitled woman and the bully, and about Grams, the tiny whirlwind who dropped her mop to defend a stranger. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. She was just a cleaner, but to me, she was so much more. She was a lesson in courage, kindness, and standing up for what's right, no matter the odds, and I will never, ever forget her. Thanks for letting me share, guys.
My heart was thumping, not just from the run I was supposed to be having, but from the knot of dread tightening in my gut. I just wanted a quick 20 minutes on the high school track, like always. Instead, I found myself locked in a chilling standoff with a group of cocky teenagers, one of whom was leaning over the fence, eyes narrowed, asking me what the hell I thought I was doing on their track. And later that night, a kid was stabbed right near that very spot. It was a Monday, already pushing later than I liked. I pulled into the mostly empty high school parking lot, music still buzzing in my ears, just looking forward to getting my miles in before dinner. But then as I was stretching, another car rolled in, then another, and another. Soon there were 3, maybe 4 cars, all pretty beat up, disgorging a small crowd of young guys. Not like the usual students I'd sometimes see. These guys had a different vibe. I tried to ignore them, telling myself it was nothing. Just a group of friends hanging out. My unease, though, had already started to prickle. I was only 2 laps into my warm-up when the commotion started, over on the far side of the field. Shouts, laughter, a general ruckus. I kept my head down, focusing on my stride. Then I heard a voice, sharp and too close, cutting through the autumn air. "Hey, you!" I slowed, glancing over. There was a guy in a bright neon yellow hoodie, hands shoved deep into his pockets, glaring at me from the chain-link fence that separated the parking lot from the track. He had a couple of other guys fanned out behind him, all looking me up and down. His tone wasn't friendly. It wasn't curious. It was possessive, like he owned the damn place.
"Yeah, me?"
I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but my stomach just did a cold flip. "What are you doing here?" he asked again, his chin jutting out. His buddies murmured a low, indistinct chorus. I blinked. "I'm, running," I said, gesturing vaguely at the track. "Exercising, just for about 20 minutes. He pushed off the fence, taking a step closer, still on the other side. "And how long are you planning on staying?" The emphasis on staying made it sound less like a question and more like a threat, like I needed his permission. 20 minutes? I repeated, feeling a flush of annoyance override my initial prickle of fear. Like I just said, my gaze flicked past him to the other boys. They weren't smiling. One of them had his arms crossed, watching me with an unnervingly still intensity. Bright hoodie guy just stared at me for another beat, then turned back to his group, muttering something I couldn't quite catch. They started a low, agitated conversation. Head nods, quick glances my way, hands moving in gestures I couldn't interpret. It was like they were discussing a problem, and that problem was me. The tension in the air was palpable, heavy, and suffocating. My gut screamed at me, "Get out." I tried to keep running, tried to pretend I wasn't listening, but my concentration was shot. Every step felt like a drumbeat echoing the alarm bells ringing in my head. I could hear their voices rising and falling, a couple of words catching my ear. Track, her, problem. I don't know if they were actually talking about me in a threatening way, or just asserting their dominance over the space, but the feeling was clear. I wasn't welcome. Forget the workout. Forget finishing my loops. My 20 minutes shrunk to 10. I didn't even bother with a cool down. My muscles were already tight with adrenaline. I grabbed my water bottle, walked as casually as I could manage past the now silent group of boys who watched me like hawks until I was in my car. I practically peeled out of the lot, my heart hammering against my ribs. As I was turning onto Main Street, my phone buzzed. It was Sarah, my friend, checking in. "Everything okay?" she asked, hearing the tremor in my voice. I quickly recounted what had happened, my breath still a little short. I just had a really bad feeling, you know? "Dawn? Seriously?" she said, her voice firm. "Maybe just avoid that track for a while. Trust your gut." I already was. But it wasn't until later that night, scrolling through local news feeds on my phone, that my gut feeling turned into a sickening lurch of dread. Unconfirmed reports, terse and frightening, were circulating about a confrontation near the high school track. A fight? And then a stabbing. A young man injured. The air went out of my lungs. My hands started to shake. I couldn't help but wonder if it was that group. If it had happened right after I left. If I'd somehow stumbled into something truly dangerous. I spent the rest of the night just staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every glare, every unsettling whisper. The next morning, the local news confirmed it. A 17-year-old was indeed stabbed in an altercation near the high school. He was recovering. The details were murky, but the location was undeniable. It wasn't an "IDontWorkHereLady" story in the typical sense, where they mistook me for an employee. It was worse. They acted like they were the ones in charge, the gatekeepers of that public space, and I was some random woman who dared to intrude on their turf. And in that moment, when my instincts screamed danger, I listened, and thank God I did. My workout could wait. My safety couldn't. Always trust that little voice in your head, Redditors. It just might save your ass.
This next one's right up your alley.